So in this lesson, we're going to add the shader effector and also the random effector because as I said in the last lesson, after this first burst of waves goes and it's kind of gets sort of silent, and about here when this first burst finished, we sort of needs to make sure that our logo starts appearing and building itself. And I don't want these main cloners to go completely dark. I want to have them back. So that's why I want to add a custom shader to my shader effector. We're going to be creating the shader effector inside After Effects and bring it inside to Cinema 4D and use it. Before doing anything, I just want to know where the whereabout of my logo, the main logo would be the cloner that will go, and our main focus will be on that. So I am going to create a simple cube and give you this dimension here, about 380 on X, 100 on Y, and about 110 on Z, and make sure just it's 100 centimeter on Y so you can see it. This is where the logo will reappear, so it's gonna help us to set up our next effectors a bit more easier because we need to make sure that those cloners completely are gonna go dark and there is no presence of them in this part that our logo and main logo actually will appear and build itself. So this is our cube, and cube indication for main logo. Okay, sorry, it's not. So cube indication for main logo. Okay, so that's really great, and this is gonna help us a lot. Now let's go to After Effects, and I show you how I created the texture that actually go through and acts like this. So here we are inside After Effects. Control and creating a new composition, and let's just name this, or just go to 01 maybe. And one important thing that you have to make sure actually, make sure it's square composition. So 1000 pixel in 1000 pixel would be much more better. And we'll go just to 24 frame rate, even though it really doesn't matter, but it's a good idea to match your frame rates throughout your whole project. And we're going to something like 200 frame per second. So we have this composition, and the next thing I'm going to create a new null object. And the null object, it doesn't matter what the name is, just make sure it's a 3D null. Select the null, go to your effects and presets and type orbit, and there is the 3D orbit. It's a free preset from Video Copilot that you can go to their website. I think Video Copilot is very famous, and I really don't need to show you. Just type Video Copilot and search for 3D orbit, and you'll get the preset for free. So let's apply the 3D orbit to our null, and now you have this sort of motion, but we want the simple sort of circular motion on X and Y. So let's just hit U, and you can go to the expressions that makes this preset, and just down here make sure instead of this, change this Z to 0, the second actual which is representing the Y to Z, and that should work. And now, as you can see, we have the null rotating around. And now what I want to do is to animate this radius here. So let's go to 0 here, click on this stopwatch here, and let's go to the end up here and animate it and see what we get. Now if I hit play, if I go through my timeline, you can see we get this sort of circular motion that growing from center, which is very nice. Okay, great. Now what I want to do is to create a new solid, Control and Y, and let's type in particular, and then I'm going to type particular here. Particular is a third-party plugin from Red Giant. Particular, sorry, particular. There we go. Apply trap with particular to your particular layer, and I'm just going to make this null my first layer, so put it up, go to your composition, go to your trap with particular effect, go to emitter section, alt click on these position X and Y, and now you can pick whip it to the position. Sorry, you have to just select your null hits P, so you have your position there, and now you can alt click on this position X and Y and pick whip to the position of our null. So now, as you can see, this is the movement of our null, as you can see, moving around and growing, and because we have attached the position, the X and Y position of our trap with particular layer to this null, we get this growing sort of circle. Now let's just adjust the settings of our particular layer a little bit. The first thing I'm going to do is change this emitter type from point to box, and then change the emitter size. Let's go to something like 150, 150, and 150, and velocities 0 for all the values that related to velocity, and you get this sort of motion. Very simple and very nice. And the next thing, let's go to the particle section down here. Let's make the size sort of much more bigger, something like this, but opacity, let's decrease it, something like 1, maybe 2. Okay, life second, let's go to something like 2 seconds, because I really don't want. Now you get this sort of motion. The amount of particles can be particle per second can be increased to something like 300. And another thing that I will go is this where size our life and use this simple preset. So when the particles are born, they are small, they get bigger, and when they die, they are getting smaller again. And so you have this simple motion, as you can see here. Very simple motion. Now what I want to do, I'm going to my project setting and create a composition based on this layer. So let's put this composition on a new composition button, and now you get this sort of motion. And very simply, just one very important thing that you have to, let's actually delete this second composition. What I want to make sure is this actual, let's Control Z, so we have our particular back. Okay, let's see what's happened there. There we go. Now we're good to go. Control Z one more time. I just don't want this particles getting cut when they get to the edges. This is why I'm going to go to my composition setting, Control K, and make sure you have a bigger composition. Let's go to something like 1200. And make sure your solid, Control Shift Y, make comp size. So hopefully now they should be in a much more better position. Yeah, that's great. Now let's go to our project and create these. I think I'm going to delete this second comp. So now I'm going to create a new composition based on our first composition. And now this is the composition that we have. I simply go through and duplicate this layer and hit R to its rotation and change the amount to something like 180, and now you get this galaxy-like effect, as you can see. Very simple. Okay, great. And now that we have this, I will go and create another composition based on this composition. Okay, now we have about 200 frame. I'm just going to my composition setting and make sure it's something like 600, so we have more frames to work with. What I'm going to do is to duplicate this layer a few times and just offset them a bit, so you get this sort of look. Let's Control D to duplicate the layer, and you can actually go through and offset those layers as you wish. It's really not something, for example, quite important. It's definitely up to you, and you can get different effects based on the amount of offset that you have. So I'm just going to have a simple offset here. So there we go. Just to make the movement a bit more regular, what I'm gonna do is to create a simple solid, a black solid. Now let's name this black bars. And on this layer, what I do is simply create a mask, and let's just create different masks throughout the layer. It really depends on you. If you want to make it more even, it's up to you, but I just want to get this sort of look. And finally, you go through and add a simple blur and sharpen, add a fast blur here, turn off the mask, and let's blur this upper layer, and we can hit T and reduce the opacity to something like 50, and that will kinda, I really want to have it more, looks like 50 is not that, something like this, and you get this. Just make sure you go through all of this layer and kind of animate the opacity. So for example, the beginning of this layer, create make the opacity 0, create a sort of keyframe, shift page down 10 frame forward, 100% here. It should be let's shift page up, so 10 frame before it's that layer finishes, and finally 0. So you just go do that for all the layers, and then you have a texture that you can export it. Even though I have rendered my own textures, and I will provide that texture for you, so you can download it with the project files. I just simply select your composition, finally hit Control M if you want. Hopefully it's working. Okay, just render queue is opened here. Just go to composition and add to render queue. And this will open up your render queue. Just change it to JPEG sequence, PNG sequence, whatever, TIFF sequence, target sequence, or even QuickTime movie if you want. And you can use that inside Cinema 4D. So let's get back to Cinema 4D and see where are we here. There we go. Now let's actually select our main cloner, and I'm going to add a shader effector, and add the shader effector. Just let's put our shader effector down here and make it part of the effectors layer. So by default, our shader effector, as you can see, scaled up all of our clones. Let's go to our parameters. We're going to turn off scales, and we're going to move the, if I turn off the shader effector, we're going to move the clones up using our Y parameter in our shader effector. Now let's just go to a part where these initial effectors are finished. Now, as you can see, we are just using our shader effector. Now, when you have rendered that texture in After Effects, let's simply double click to create a new material. Let's this material, let's name it for shader effector. Okay, and turn off the color and the specular, even though you can use any channels that you want, but I just used to work with luminance for a situation like this. And I have rendered this sort of composition and grayscale map, and I will give that to you and provide it to you. So I'm just going to use it. Click on the first one. It says if you want to copy these files to your project, but I don't need, just hit no. Go to that file, go to animation tab, make sure to hit calculate. So even though it's we can change the frame rate simply here to 24 and calculate it again. Sorry, just go to 24 So that's it. And now what you can do is go to your shader effector. In the shading tab, you can define what shader you want to be the source and the way that shader effector is being controlled. Basically, you define a grayscale map, and shader effectors decide where the white pixels are. It uses this parameter. Where the black pixels are, it is considered this parameter to be 0. So I'm going to my shading tab. Let's apply this shader to apply this material to our shader effector. Go to the shading and use the luminance channel. Now the next thing to do is to make sure that our texture tag is properly projected onto our cloner. So for that matter, I'm going to my shader effector. If I enable this texture mode, as you can see, we have to change our tag from UV mapping to something else. Let's go to something like flat, and we get this strange result because, as you can see, our tag hasn't been properly projected. So I'm going to select the shader, go to your texture, select your rotation value, and hold on shift, and we're going to rotate it 90 degree. And the next thing is select this enable axis, because we're going to make our texture bigger. So let's sorry, let me just select this shader axis, and now I can see how that's actually. Let's go to our top view and see exactly how this thing is working. There we go. And we have in a good position right now. I can turn off my texture, go to back to your model mode, and if we now add a bit more frames, let's go to something like 500. Now you can see this is where our shader effector basically starts to work. Let me just for now delete this cube. I'm going to select my shader effector and go to parameters. Let's go to something like 100, so you can see the effect of that shader effector quite easily. And this is the effect that shader effectors create and gives us these very complex motions. If I hit play, let's just make sure, even though we're in the low detail, so hit play, you can see this is how our shader effector, even though it's really hard really to see them, but okay, so something like 100, and let's see how our shader effector actually works. Just to make sure that everything just run a bit more smoothly, I'm going to have a quick software preview. Let's just make sure we have a whole all the frames, which is something like 500. And I'm just going to have a quick software render, pause the video, and when it's finished, I'll be back with you. Okay guys, so the render is finished, and this is where the shader effector comes in. What frame? 112, something like this. And if you take a look, we got this nice motions going on, which is great, which is nice. The only thing that I want to make sure that it works kind of in a good manner, just I'm going to make sure the shader effector just too much. Let's go something like 50 centimeters. And also, I don't want the shader effector affect this central part here where our cubes is, and where actually our logo is gonna be there. So what I'm gonna do is go to the shader effector, go to the fall off tab, and let's create this time a box fall off tab, and I'm gonna invert the fall off. Right now, whatever clones that are inside these fall offs will be affected by the shader effector, but if I invert this, all the clones that are outside this box will be affected, and the clones that are inside are not going to be affected. So let's just make sure the size in X. Let's go to something like 400. That's too much. 350. and let's see, something like this. And okay, so this is definitely not too bad. I just want to make sure actually I have a much more gradual fall off, and let's just, that's too much, something like this. And also from this side, so the fall off still is too much here. There we go. Let me just turn off this cube here, and I'm just going to make sure. Okay, so let's just disable all of these. I think that's because of our delay effector that causes that problem. Now, as you can see, our shader effector is being applied outside our cube, and then that's where our basically our main logo will go. In the next lesson, we are going to be finishing this main cloner setup by adding some randomization. So see you there.